support.
The maestro, please.
Hope you're ready for a leap year day analysis, and we got a big one for you today. Because today we are going over Texas Hold'em by none other than the legend and queen herself, Beyoncé.
Beyoncé.
Unsurprisingly, we have talked about Beyoncé before, given it wasn't a feature when we did.
I'm a bad bitch, she's a savage, no comparison here. I'ma flip my hair and look back while I twerk in the mirror.
She has obviously been up to a bit more since then, having gotten two very strong pop hits off of her previous album, those being
You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul.
and
We gon' fuck up the night. Black lights, spaceships fly.
Background.
Texas Hold'em was released on February 11th, 2024, charting 2 weeks later at number 2, and as of the beginning of March is set to be number 1. Texas Hold'em is going to be released off of Beyoncé's upcoming album, Act 2, which is scheduled to release at the end of March. What makes this interesting is this album was announced at the Super Bowl via a commercial for Verizon, really just kind of offhandedly at the end.
Okay, they ready. Drop the new music.
Regardless, in addition to Texas Hold'em, which is listed as the first single, it was released alongside the second single, that being
16 carriages driving away while I watch them ride with my.
assisting Beyoncé on Texas Hold'em, we have Killa B, Lowell, Raphael Sadiq, Bulow, and Nathan Ferraro. Brian Bates, better known as Killa B, is no stranger to the pop scene, having a number of high-profile R&B and pop hits on the charts. Credits include
Switching in positions for you. Getting in the kitchen and I'm in the bedroom.
as well as
This shit feel like a circus. Running around, chasing.
Next, we have Elizabeth Lowell Boland, an artist in her own right, but that's not saying she doesn't have a few songwriting credits to her name, most notably
Always knew that you were too damn selfish. Don't know why I looked the other.
Raphael Sadiq, a legend in the R&B and pop scene, having credits dated all the way back to as well as
Love of my life. You are my friend.
finally, we have Megan Bulow, simply known as Bulow, and Nathan Ferraro. While they're absolutely no stranger to the music scene, this is their first big pop credit. Texas Hold'em is released jointly by Columbia and Beyoncé's own label, Parkwood.
Form.
Texas Hold'em is a country, pop, western, and soul song. Just under 4 minutes long, is in D major, and 110 beats per minute. After the instrumental intro, we actually have the first chorus,
This ain't Texas. Ain't no hold'em.
which is then followed by the first verse.
There's a tornado in my city.
Then getting our first pre-chorus,
Ooh, one step to the right.
before going into our second chorus.
Lay our cards down, 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 down.
We then have the post-chorus, which is entirely just woo-hoos and whistling, before going into the second verse,
All of the problems just feel dramatic.
the second pre-chorus,
Doesn't work me in the middle, boy. I can't read your mind.
moving on to the third verse,
And I'll be damned if I cannot dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a
before finally getting to the outro, which obviously ends the song.
Sologenic, photogenic, shoot.
Banjo.
The banjo, played by legendary banjo player Rhiannon Giddens, opens up the song at the very beginning, doing what is typical of a banjo and doing very quick plucking and broken chords, even with some pitch bends in there. She then does this little 2-bar figure before we transition into the actual song itself. Following that, she simplifies what she's playing, going back and forth between those low Ds and that high fourth, that A and D, an octave higher, syncopated slightly to make it a little interesting. As we move to the song, she does change what she's doing on those upper notes. In that first half, you see she's now doing a B and D on that upper register before going back to the A and D later on. We then get a bit of variation on those lower notes, that first bar hitting that low A, the second hitting that low G, slightly changing the notes up top to account for the harmonic motion before cutting off at the end and transitioning into the next section of the song. In the next part, she actually transitions from a picking pattern to a strumming pattern for this entire phrase, simply playing D major. Just like before, she does change as things move on, switching to G major for 2 bars before going back to D major. You can also notice she does slight variations on the strumming pattern. As we move on, it gets a bit more harmonically interesting, doing a bar of B minor, then a D sus2 chord before going back to D major. And ultimately ending this strumming section with a B minor, a D sus2, a D major, but then going to a D sus4 chord at the end. We then move on to quite a complex figure. I honestly don't know if this is 2 banjos layered over each other, or if Rhiannon Giddens is just that talented of a banjo player. Regardless, we kind of have 2 distinct voices. We have the finger plucking on the bottom, but we have that 5th that she keeps plucking up top. That pretty much continues, changing things slightly. The rhythm of those intervals up top has changed, as well as them being lower, and we notice that there are occasional pitch bends in some of the longer 8th notes on the finger-picking part. It then transitions to a much quieter form, but doing what we saw before, that low note with the intervals on top. The final banjo part we get at the very end is very emblematic of what we just heard, given now it's kind of simulating a bass line as well. Notice how those lower notes constantly shift and change.
Bass.
The bass is significantly simpler, really just staying on that low D, really only reticulating every other bar minus that 1/4 note at the end. It does shift with the overall harmony though, jumping up to that G, then going down back to the D. The most interesting bass part we get, starting on that A, moving its way down chromatically to the G, before going back down to that D again.
Viola.
The viola, played by legendary banjo player Rhiannon Giddens, yes, she did actually play both, starts off with this lovely 4th interval, really emphasizing that this is a country song, even has the pitch bends. Oddly enough, I'd more call it a fiddle than a viola. We then get a second viola line in there as well, and I'm pretty sure this is actually 2 violas layered over each other. Rhiannon probably played them both, but not at the same time. Notice how that lower one, though, has that lovely little chromatic figure with the F natural. The viola then drops out and doesn't come back until the outro near the end, where it has just kind of these lovely little short additions here on that high D for the most part. And then again here, where it's much lower in its register. It stays pretty much in that lower register for the rest of the song, but now focusing on a B as opposed to a D.
Whistle.
Making up pretty much the entirety of the post-chorus, the whistle has this lovely syncopated figure that it pretty much repeats going back and forth with the woo-hoos. The second phrase pretty much repeats that minus the second half of the first subphrase, which gives us that little F natural pitch bend. The other time the whistle comes back is during the outro. Repeating exactly what it did before, given the second half of each phrase, is an octave lower, and that goes for the woo-hoo at the end as well. It does give a bit of a different textural flavor, though, when it does have that lower octave, especially during the outro, which is, well, texturally very different.
Piano.
Only one piano part, and it plays solely during the outro, having that eighth note figure in octaves going A, B, A an octave higher, F sharp, and then goes back and forth playing these B minor add 4 chords and E7 sus4 over A chords. Very syncopated, I might add.
Chorus.
Starting off the song with the chorus, she does these syncopated figures typically starting on B or at least close to it, and notice how at the end she works all the way down to that low D. Makes a lot of sense considering she's saying down, 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 down. And we also have some backup vocals going woo and hey.
This ain't Texas, ain't no hold'em, so lay your cards down, 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 down.
Essentially repeats that in the following phrase, including with the woos and the heys. The only real addition minus changed lyrics and changed rhythms to account for changed lyrics is that the additional backup vocals do actually say, stick around.
So park your Lexus and throw your keys up. Stick around, round, 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 round. Stick around.
At the back half of each chorus, we get a little bit of a change. She's working a little bit higher in her register, especially with those kind of indefinite pitches on U and 2, but much clearly higher. And she transitions into just talking when she starts off with ho down.
And I'll be damned if I can't slow dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be a bitch, come take it to the floor now. Woo!
In the second chorus, we get a large addition in the form of 3-part Beyoncé harmonies, pretty much on every word she says, minus a couple here and there.
This ain't Texas, ain't no hold'em, so lay your cards down, 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 down.
For the most part, the harmonies do a 1-to-1 with Beyoncé's main vocal line, though there are a couple of departures. You'll notice on the in that first stick around, there's actually a melisma in the backup vocals where there's not as a prominent one in Beyoncé's main line.
So park your Lexus and throw your keys up. Stick around, round, 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 round. Stick around.
Following that, she does say the same line that she ended the first chorus with at the end, but after that, she actually does add an additional line, repeating basically what she said, but there are some changed words here. Instead of sugar, it's liquor, and slight alterations like that.
And I'll be damned if I cannot dance with you. Come pour some liquor on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be a bitch, come take it to the floor now.
Moving on to the final chorus, the backup harmonies do stay the same, but this time the main vocal line has changed. You notice here that Beyoncé is now much higher in her register and doing much longer melismas.
This ain't Texas, ain't no hold'em. Lay your cards down, 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 down. No.
Given she still does kind of follow the form, not too much of a departure, especially in rhythms, but again, much higher in her register.
Park your Lexus, hey, throw your keys up. Stick around, round, 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 round. Stick around.
At the end, she does repeat both lines, the sugar one and the liquor one. The only alteration is on the words sugar and liquor, the melodies are slightly altered.
And I'll be damned if I cannot dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be a bitch, come take it it to the floor. I'll be damned if I
Verse.
Comparatively, the verses for Beyoncé's main vocal lines are actually much lower, still kind of doing the same rhythms though in terms of syncopation that she did in the chorus. The big thing here though is those vocal harmonies are also much lower, but now they're not simultaneously done with Beyoncé's main vocal line. Now it's more of a back and forth as the backup vocals repeat what Beyoncé has already said.
There's a tornado in my city. Hit the basement. That shit ain't pretty. Rugged whiskey.
That pretty much continues until those final two bars where they do sing together in these lovely harmonies and even on the melisma at the end as well.
Rugged whiskey. We surviving. Of red cup kisses, sweet redemption, passing time, yeah.
The second verse essentially repeats that same idea back and forth with the backup harmonies, but now they're 4-part backup harmonies as opposed to just 3-part ones.
There's a heat wave coming at us. Too hot to think straight, too cold to panic. All of the problems just feel dramatic.
Given on the back half of the second verse, those 4-part harmonies do go back to being just 3-part harmonies.
All of the problems just feel dramatic. Now we're running to the first bar that we find, yeah.
Pre-chorus.
The pre-chorus always opens on that melisma going from B to D, and we do have those 4-part backup harmonies, but only emphasizing certain lines. Note here how she also is having some fun with some chromaticism, especially with those F naturals.
Ooh, one step to the right, we headed to the dive bar we always thought was nice.
That pretty much repeats itself, slight alterations to some melodies, still having those F naturals for that chromaticism, and the backup harmonies are included a bit more now.
Ooh, run me to the left, then spin me in the middle, boy, I can't read your mind.
The second pre-chorus really doesn't change much, except on the back half where there are some different lyrics. Notice on the first one it was run me to the left, now it's you run to the left, and instead of then spin me in the middle, it's now just work me in the middle.
Ooh, you run to the left, just work me in the middle, boy, I can't read your mind.
Outro.
Going into the outro, the last bar in the chorus before does change a little bit. She actually censors out the word bitch, but for the most part she is just repeating take it to the floor now and talking, given there is an additional backup vocal up top on that high A on hoops, spurs, and boots, and there's a little bit of drop off on the word spurs.
Don't be a, come take it to the floor now, ooh. Take it to the floor now, ooh. Hoops, spurs, boots. To the floor now.
That idea pretty much continues throughout the outro. There's just spoken parts from Beyoncé occasionally doing oohs, and that high A on the various words.
Top, back, oops. Shoot. Come take it to the floor now.
Given in the outro, we have this one lovely line done in 4-part harmonies if you include the 3 from the backup vocals, and has those good pitch bends as well.
And I'll be damned if I cannot dance with you. Baby, pour that sugar and liquor on me too.
Ultimately, the outro and the song ends with those high A's though. We have the note drops on the furs and the spurs, and we have those really quick solargenic, photogenic 16th notes before finally ending on shoot.
Me too. Spurs, boots, solargenic, photogenic, shoot.
So when everyone said that Beyoncé's new music was a bunch of country songs, and in fact that upcoming album is meant to be a country album, kind of in the same vein that Renaissance was a dance and electronic album, you know, I was getting flashbacks to Old Town Road with Lil Nas X and the big debate coming out. However, after listening through it, you can't really argue that this isn't a country song. Yes, you could argue the country pop, and we can debate over what genre Western is, but at the end of the day, we got a banjo, we got a viola, we got like Texas Hold'em, we got all of the typical country references. So honestly, yes, this is a #1 country song, but hey, you might debate that. I don't know what your opinions on genres are. I mean,
I can't read your mind, this ain't Texas, ain't no Hold'em. Lay your cards down, 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 down. So park your Lexus.
look, I'm just saying, it would be the hottest country duo collaboration and would break the internet.
Throw your keys up, stick around, round, 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 round. Stick around. And I'll be damned if I can't slow dance with you. Come pour some sugar on me, honey, too. It's a real live boogie and a real live hold down. Don't be a bitch, come take it to the floor now.